Sandra, my dear, welcome to the show. I'm so excited. I'm not going to lie, though. I have tissues nearby.
I do too. Not gonna lie. So good to
Welcome,
see
love.
you.
You
Thank you
too.
so much.
Coming all the way in from Dubai. What time is it there?
It's currently 8:15
Oh my goodness. At night,
in the evening. In the evening.
in
Yeah.
the evening, and it's 9 o'clock for us in the morning. So kids are in
Yeah.
bed,
Kids
and
are
I
in bed.
appreciate you spending time with us.
No
Let's
worries.
go back real quick because I'm really excited to get into today's episode. I honestly think it's going to be one of those episodes, which is my favorite reason for podcasting, where I'm going to just get so much value and I get to ask you so many questions and your expertise. Just take us back real quick. If the audience has been around for a while, they've seen you. You've been around in our world for many, many years, and you've shared your story. But if you wouldn't mind kind of bringing us back to how you became an expert in so many different like health, functional medicine, fertility, hormones, cycle syncing, so many different areas. Just give us a quick little kind of cliff notes of your story.
Yeah, sure. So I think it all started. I mean, we kind of get into a field because of our experiences and what we learn through them. And so this all started, it was not something I ever thought that I would really be in, but this all started really with my own personal journey in health, which started when I was 16 years old. Just very briefly, I got diagnosed with an extreme form of hypothyroidism. So my body was technically shutting down at the age of 16. And that was due to an autoimmune condition, which is Hashimoto's thyroiditis. At the time, nobody really knew what that was or what, I had no idea what a thyroid was. And it really took me by absolute shock to have to really overhaul my life. I had to learn about my body. I had to learn about how to support my thyroid. I was told I would be put on meds for the rest of my life. So I had to come to the realization that I had no other option but to be on medication. And it was a very long journey of just loads of questions, like, why is this happening to me? Why at the age of 16 is my body shutting down? Why was I feeling so terrible? I was active. I was eating relatively fine for being someone in high school, So I had a lot of questions, and that curiosity pretty much, carried on through my teen years, my early 20s, because I had so many other symptoms that were just constantly, whenever I would ask doctors about, why is this happening to me? Or why am I feeling so much pain? Or why am I feeling so tired? It was always answered with the words, it's normal. You're a woman. We get cramps, we get period pains, we get migraines. Meanwhile, I was screaming from pain at the age of 12 because of my periods. I had chronic migraines that would leave me literally in bed for about 3 days. I had all kinds of digestive issues. I had terrible skin. And it was just stuff that really carried on through to my early 20s.
Yeah.
And I was just constantly like dealing with the symptoms, managing things, learning about, different supplements, medications.
What was your parents' approach during all this? Because I mean, you're a kid, you're 12, 14, 16. What was their kind of take on it? Just do what the doctors say, or?
No, so my mom was always someone so funnily enough, my dad is a pharmacist. He works in big pharma. So, and has for many, many years. And his approach is always, take the pills.
Sure.
Get out of your pain, get out of your misery. Whereas my mother was like, absolutely no. You're 12 years old. Deal with it. Like, wow. Put a hot water bottle, deal with the pain. You're going to be all right. Just soldier through, because this is what happens. That's what she used to tell me. This is what happens. We all go through it. We've all been there. So it was always this like generational, just get over it. You're a woman, right? By default, you should be suffering and pain and misery because you're a woman. But that just never sat right with me. I was like, surely that's not normal. So it was this just constant like asking why, and this curiosity continued with me until I was in my late 20s, when I discovered alternative medicine, holistic healing, functional medicine. And it was like this huge aha moment when I met a doctor and he was like, none of what you are experiencing is normal. And I was like, what? So that just brought me on to this whole journey of learning and discovery and really understanding my body. And I'm so glad that I listened to my gut, because I knew that that couldn't be normal.
Yeah.
And it was that curiosity that just continued leading me through this journey. And, here I am today, teaching women to do the same, to be curious about their health and their bodies and truly understanding it, because I think we've been so detached. We've become so detached from our bodies and our ability to heal it.
Yeah.
Heal our bodies.
So now we're in 2020. You and I meet. Mm-hmm. This is a couple of years back, and you had just had your baby girl.
Yes.
You had her first before you were diagnosed, right?
Yeah. So I had Harper in September, in February of 2020.
And 6 months after.
6 months after, I received a diagnosis of stage 1 thyroid cancer, which was like, after everything that I'd been through my whole life and everything that I've tried to, fix and heal. And I did so much work around my body and my health and my habits and everything. And I felt great. And I had a very safe and healthy pregnancy, thankfully. And getting a diagnosis like that, getting a diagnosis like that was honestly, it just rocks your world.
Yeah.
Like upside down.
Did you start to question at all that like the functional way, the holistic way wasn't working, or it wasn't worth it? Because here you are now presented with this cancer, and you probably had felt like you had done everything right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. And I, at the time I was also a certified health coach. I had started working with clients. I was advocating healthy living. And then, I get this diagnosis, and not only did I have an existential crisis as a mother, I had an existential crisis as, a professional. Like, how am I supposed to show face in front of people that I coach when I myself got cancer?
Yeah.
How does that make me look, right?
How did you move through that?
I think, well, one of the things that pushed me through that was coming on to Empower and meeting you. I'm serious. That was one conversation that truly shifted a lot of things in me, because I remember one thing you told me. You said, you are the story. You are why people are going to come searching for you as a coach, because you've lived it, it. So that completely changed everything. But also it was like people around me, my support group, just continuously telling me and showing me that, you had this experience. And it was almost like when I had this whole experience, I felt this calling to share it.
Yeah.
And I'm not someone that normally shares a lot of personal things, especially on social media. And I was like, I have to share this. And when I did, it was only after my surgery was complete that I shared, by the way, I had cancer. And the amount of people that messaged me and the response that I got was mind blowing. And it just completely shifted something inside of me, because I was like, people need help. Like, people aren't being heard. Women are going through these things silently.
Yeah.
And nobody's listening to them. So I felt this like intuitive calling to be that leader for them, or like at least live by example or lead by example, to show people like, look, I'm a health coach, but I'm by no means perfect. Like we're all learning. Yeah. So, and that's something that, again, you mentioned as well, as coaches and as leaders, we're only a step ahead of our clients. We're not necessarily this like on a pedestal of like, oh, perfection, which always stuck with me, because it puts so much less pressure on us as coaches and as professionals to feel like we have to be perfect all the time. And that's what caused my existential crisis, was because I was like, now I'm not perfect. So in the image, in the eyes of my clients or prospective clients, I can't be their coach, because I'm no longer like this image of health.
It's like the ultimate imposter syndrome. Like here you are teaching health, and then you have cancer. It's like, how dare I? Who am I to do that?
Exactly.
But if you strip away mom, daughter, coach, survivor, if you strip away any of the titles, like I don't mean just, but like you're just a human. right? Like,
Of
it's like, you're
course.
just another human.
Of
Oh my
course.
goodness. Okay. So you go through this cancer journey, which I was by your side right after that. And, we were working together. You have Harper, you continue to build the business, you get really, really loud. And I don't mean loud in a bad way. You get really loud about hormones and toxins and environment and fertility and cycle syncing and all of these things. And now here we are today. You also have an adorable little son. And here we are today, years later, you've helped hundreds and hundreds of women with many different things, many different things. And if you fall on Sandra's page, you'll see she talks about, what do you do when you're not hungry in the morning, and what's your body telling you, and different environmental swaps and things in your house and things that you might not recognize. She talks about alcohol and what it does to your cycle. Like, there's so many things that you can learn on your page. It is you're a wealth of knowledge, and your Instagram page alone is just, it's like all of these trainings, all of these, even if it's just scratch the surface, like if your interest is peaked on these things, I'd love to talk a little bit about, if you're open to it, your own fertility journey.
So my fertility journey was fine the first time around. It happened by accident, actually. So it was quite easy. I had a relatively very easy pregnancy. I loved being pregnant the first time around. I was very active. And then I had a very traumatizing birth and delivery for many different reasons. I think one, the shock of just delivering a human being, it's a lot. And I don't think I was really well prepared for it, which is another reason why I'm so vocal about postpartum and delivery and prepping your body and prepping your mind for delivering a baby, because women are not prepared in any way. And so,
can we stay there for 1 second?
Yes.
What are some things that you would say to someone listening who's maybe thinking about becoming pregnant, or is currently pregnant, or about to deliver? What are some things that we can do tactically and tangibly to prepare?
So there's a lot of things, obviously, everything from your diet, your environment, your lifestyle habits. You want to make sure that think of preparing for pregnancy as if you are pregnant. What would you do if you're pregnant? You obviously want to avoid toxins. You want to avoid processed foods. You want to treat your body as if you're pregnant. And so the things that we want to avoid and things that might be a risk to us when we're pregnant is probably the best or the easiest way to look at it, of how you want to prepare your body before getting pregnant. But it's also really important to understand that women are not the only ones in this equation.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to a lot of women, and I've worked with a lot of women whose partners have no idea what to do and are completely blind to what they have to know, the fact that they are part of the equation, a very big part of the equation.
Yeah.
And actually 50% of it, right? So it definitely takes two to tango. And it's extremely important to make sure that your partner also understands what he has to do in order to make sure that fertility is going to happen, is boosted between you both and is optimal. So definitely preparing, the way that your partner trains, the way that he eats, the way that, again, the products that he uses. Toxins are a huge part of infertility nowadays. And sperm count is extremely low. Women are experiencing all kinds of fertility issues. So I think those would be like the top things that I would say from a tactical day-to-day thing. But
how
one of the biggest
before quote unquote trying would you want to start cleaning things up and preparing? Is it, I'm trying, so I'm going to start removing toxins today, or 3 months, 6 months, 9 months before you should be considering?
Yeah, I would say 3 months minimum.
Yeah.
But ideally anywhere between 6 months to a year.
Okay.
Yep.
A much longer journey than people would anticipate.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So we start cleaning up the toxins. We're mindful of our exercise, our partner's exercise, what we're eating, all of that type of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. But also I think from a emotional and mental point of view, I think, being prepared for the journey ahead, having a support group, speaking to women who are mothers, which I didn't necessarily do the first time until after the fact. So I had so many questions, and truly no one prepares you until you're in it, you know, in the thick of it. So I think being curious, asking questions, advocating for yourself with your gynecologist, understanding, you know, what is being done when you go to appointments, understanding all the different options that you have, being super informed about the different ways that you can deliver a baby, the different options that you have, and, you know, whether it's C-section or whether it's vaginal or whatever it is. I think just being informed is extremely important. And I think I didn't ask enough questions about that part of the process. So after I delivered Harper, I went through a very, very, very difficult time in my life of just like complete overwhelm. I had no idea what I was doing. I was extremely anxious. I went through all kinds of emotional roller coasters. So yeah, it definitely took its toll.
Were you navigating postpartum depression?
Yeah, I think it was more anxiety than depression. Okay. I wouldn't put it as full-on depression, but I was definitely extremely anxious all the time.
Yeah. You also were then diagnosed with cancer and then decided to build an entire business. So, and the world shut down.
There's also that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we went into lockdown a month after I delivered Harper, which was even harder because I couldn't see anyone. I couldn't even go for a walk, you know? So like mentally it was just this crazy anxiety that was eating me up alive. And I didn't really truly come out of that until a year postpartum. But, you know, she's a wonderful little girl and we got through that. And yes, I started my business amidst all this craziness. And then to answer your question about the rest of my fertility journey, so we decided to start trying again about 2 years after we had Harper. And then I actually miscarried. And, you know, again, a bunch of questions came into my mind. You know, why did this happen to me? What is going on with my body? Mind you, I no longer had a thyroid. You know, the second time around, I don't have a thyroid currently. So there was always this sort of fear of the traumatic experience that would happen if I had a baby again. And I would have nightmares about getting pregnant. I would have nightmares about having another baby. I would have nightmares about what if I get diagnosed with cancer again. And I miscarried. And there were definitely things going on physically in my body that caused that miscarriage. But what I realized was my thoughts and my mindset were actually blocking that pregnancy. I was not prepared for it. And it was my body, honestly, trying to protect me because
were you able to get pregnant easier? You just didn't keep.
I didn't keep it wasn't a struggle of getting pregnant. It was just, I couldn't keep the pregnancy.
Were you consciously thinking, I'll call them negative thoughts for lack of a better term, like if this, then that, because last time this is all that I know, right? Like I had a baby, I got cancer. So were you consciously thinking those thoughts?
Yes, I was. And, you know, I was even talking it, you know, to my husband. I was telling my parents, and it was almost like I was like, not manifesting, but it was like, you know, bringing it to life. Those thoughts were brought to life.
How far were you when you miscarried?
About 6 weeks.
Okay.
So it was early, but strangely enough, you know, as hard as it is, I also felt a sense of relief. And I know that might sound really terrible, but I also felt like I wasn't ready for multiple reasons. And I think one of the biggest things was like what I just mentioned. But, you know, after it happened, I realized how badly I wanted it. You know, like it's this like duality of, okay, I'm not ready, but I also know that I will be ready.
Yeah.
So, you know, we spent a summer away, and when we got back, I was pregnant again. I think it was October. So I miscarried in June or May, and I was pregnant again in October, end of October.
Wow.
So it happened quite quick. And, you know, thankfully it went into, again, a very healthy pregnancy. But I went into this pregnancy a completely different person. And I was extremely zen compared to the first time.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that the way you are during your pregnancy and the way that you approach the delivery of, you know, a baby and all of that truly translates in how that baby becomes and like their personality.
Yeah.
And you can definitely see that my son is 100% calmer than my daughter. He's like the most chill guy. So I just put it down to that.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh. I appreciate you just sharing all of that. I know for anyone listening, certainly myself, it is helpful just to even hear other women's stories. I'm curious if at any point, cancer, miscarriage, any of these pieces of your journey, have you ever gone to therapy?
I have done healing sessions, so not so much therapy. I did see a Reiki healer. I also did somatics, somatic healing. And I did a lot of like, well, you know, understanding the throat chakra, which specifically for my cancer, because I remember when I got diagnosed with thyroid cancer, I had a Reiki healer reach out to me and say, let me see you, because throat cancer actually manifests from a blocked throat chakra. And for someone who has a blocked throat chakra, it usually means that you have a really hard time expressing yourself and expressing your feelings and getting what you want out into the world.
Did that
like
resonate?
You have a hard 100%.
Oh yeah.
Like 100%. I have always been someone who blocks emotions and like shoves them down. And I think when she said that, I honestly think like there was a complete shift in who I am as a person from that diagnosis.
Yeah.
It was like a complete 180 flip of understanding what I've been to that point and who I wanted to become and what I had to do to become that person. So there were so many, like, now that you bring back all these memories, there were so many things that like connected the dots and made me really understand, like, oh my God, you know, that actually was me, like as a kid all my life. So it truly made sense. And it just, there's like so much you can understand and uncover from these kinds of healing modalities.
It's so wild. Is there anything that you and Rob are doing in order to kind of, I guess, safeguard against Harper and Dominic going down that same path of maybe suppressing emotions or not speaking things, you know, out loud or asking for what they need? Obviously, Dominic is not speaking yet.
Yeah.
But is there anything that you guys are doing or you're super conscious about when you're parenting?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Rob is the complete opposite of me, which obviously complements me. He is someone who is quite outspoken and he gets his emotions out there quite easily. Whereas I'm the opposite, but he's taught me a lot to like communicate, just get it out. Yeah. And we do the same thing. I mean, you know, with our kids, like if something's bothering you, speak about it. And if you can't communicate it, we try, and especially with Harper, because she's going through a very difficult phase now of like, you know, terrible threes, I'm going to call them, because they're not terrible twos. Whoever made terrible twos up had no idea. But threes are even like more intense. And
she's a three-nager, right?
She's 100% a three-nager and she acts like she's 13. But it's just like crazy to see how frustrated someone gets when they can't express what they want.
Yeah.
And I see so much of myself in that and in the way that she is. So we try as much as possible, try being the key word, to like not, you know, get impatient, and try to really like listen to her and understand her. And I think it's a lot about listening. Yeah. Mostly. Yeah. And asking questions, which is something that I personally didn't have growing up. So it's something that I definitely want to change with how I raise my kids. But
and even how you continue to raise yourself and your relationship with Rob and your clients. It's like what beautiful mirrors these little kids are to show us, like, we're just larger versions of them, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so 100%. I love that. Yeah. Let's shift gears for a second. I'd love to hear your opinion on cycle syncing. I get it. I totally understand it scientifically. I have a science background. It's what I went to school for. I'm all for it.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, and this might resonate with someone listening, when I read about like seed cycling, for example, or like changing your workouts depending on where you are in your cycle, I don't know if it's a story that I'm carrying with me or the reality of I had an eating disorder for 10 years. And so to put another restriction, or not even restriction, but like rule that I have to follow, I'm also vegan and gluten-free and by choice, right? Well, gluten-free because it makes me sick, but to put like another restriction or rule to me is exhausting. And I'm like, while I can conceptually understand benefits of it, it is not for me. Same thing with workouts. I'm like, if I have to track one more thing, I'm like, I can't do it. So I'd just love to hear your opinion on something like cycle syncing. And also, can you just break down what cycle syncing is? Because I may have just butchered. It's probably so much more than that.
No, it's totally that. So cycle syncing is basically adapting your lifestyle and the food that you're eating and the way that you eat around different phases of your cycle. So traditionally, cycle syncing enthusiasts will tell you need to change, or you need to eat certain foods in specific times of the month, or you need to eat certain seeds in specific time of the month, which will help with your hormone balance. And then the same thing with training. So doing certain trainings at specific times of the month. Now, I'm personally, I agree with you. I think if there's like one more thing that a woman has to remember to do, like, please spare me. Look, if you like to do it, you do you, but I prefer not complicating women's lives further.
Yeah.
So I think the rule of thumb is this. The most important thing you need to remember is two things around food when it comes to your cycle. One, you are more insulin sensitive in the first half of your cycle, and you are more insulin resistant after you've ovulated in the second half of your cycle. So if you are planning on indulging, eating really high carb, refined sugar foods, please do so in the first half of your cycle, only because your body is going to respond to that sugar and the blood sugar spikes much better than after you've ovulated. So in the second half of the month, you really want to balance your blood sugar. You want to make sure that you are eating ample amounts of protein, that you are actually eating more than in the first half of your cycle, because your metabolic rate actually increases with the surge of progesterone in the second half of your cycle. And if you eat more, and more, I'm talking about like generally around 200 to 300 calories extra per day for those 2 weeks, because of that increase in progesterone. And if you do that, I guarantee your cravings, these cravings that we've always had around our periods, will disappear. Because we were never taught that we had to eat more. So women reach out for high carb foods, chocolate, sweets, sugar, all of that stuff. But if you prioritize protein, if you prioritize eating more, that will all go away.
Yeah.
The second thing is just around the time of your period or right before it, I would increase the amount of magnesium or magnesium-rich foods, which helps progesterone. So that includes dark chocolate for everyone who's a chocolate lover. And then also omega-3 foods. So omega-3 foods are like your fatty fish, olive oil, avocado, all of that good, healthy fats, because they are actually anti-inflammatory. And we want to up the anti-inflammatory foods during that time in order to reduce cramping and PMS and all those symptoms that we get around our periods, which is an inflammatory event in our bodies, needless to say.
Yeah.
So we want to just kind of tame that inflammation as much as possible and not kind of add fuel to the fire.
I'm like, rewind, go back, write these notes down.
Yeah.
I love that you take, go ahead.
Sorry. And then, no, just about training. So training, you do not have to change the way that you train every single phase. Again, rule of thumb is you don't want to be doing CrossFit and cardio 2 weeks before your training, 2 weeks before your period. Try and reduce the amount of high intensity training and opt for lower impact stuff, especially in the second half of your cycle. But if you're, for example, weight training, and that's your form of training, or doing Pilates, you can do that throughout your cycle, no issue. It's more for the women who are really into cycling or CrossFit or any of those kind of high impact trainings. I would just not do that in the second half.
Okay. I love the more kind of free flowing approach that you take, because again, could be a story. I'm not a doctor making this up, but for me, I feel like the more like rules and restrictions that I create, whether it's around food or diet or whatever, it's like, for me, that actually spikes my cortisol. It stresses me out. And I'm like, it's counterintuitive.
100%.
It's like not doing me anything good. I also have to
100%.
correct, it's been 20 years. I'm technically now vegetarian. I did start eating eggs about a month ago, 2 months ago.
Amazing.
Yeah, which has been interesting. I think the hardest part for me was, well, getting to eat them. I've been wanting to try eating them for about 5 years. So finally taking the leap to do it. But the label, the identity, especially because for me, I had built my entire business, you know, as vegan bodybuilder and all these things. And so 20 years of my life, I'm not even 40 yet, you know, I have a couple months left. So it was like, wow, half of my life I've been vegan, and to strip that, to take that label away, it was like, I felt so naked, you know, like so seen. Let's talk a little bit about fertility and some of the biggest kind of markers of infertility that you are seeing in women that you're working with.
So I think, so obviously taking to the side genetic issues, which are obviously present in some women, but it's a very small percentage. I think the majority of women, you know, and before we recorded this podcast, I told you, excuse me, that, you know, we see a lot of over medicalization of, if that's even a word, we over medicalize fertility. We've over medicalized fertility. So women are really being pushed into IVF very fast.
Yeah.
And I have a problem with that, to be honest, because one, there are so many things you can do before you resort to IVF. And if you have to resort to IVF, that's completely fine. But is your body ready to do IVF? Because you still have to prepare your body for IVF to be successful. It's not just like a, you know, blank check. It's not a guarantee.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that we really focus on a few things. And obviously food and nutrition is huge. I'm seeing women who are completely undernourished, all kinds of disordered eating, nutritional deficiencies, not eating enough protein, not, you know, on all kinds of diets, on all kinds of restrictions. And, you know, that creates that lack of safety that our bodies need for fertility. Our bodies need to feel safe. And as women, we need to make sure we nourish our bodies properly. I think the two other things that I commonly see are digestive issues, which are very much linked to fertility issues, which is something that is completely overlooked. And there is a very intricate link between our gut health and our fertility. So if anything is off, or if you have an infection, or if you have any dysbiosis, that can actually cause miscarriages. It can actually cause implantation issues. So that is something that I would definitely, you know, if you are trying to conceive, that's something that before you even try, I would, you know, get tested, see what's going on with your gut microbiome, especially because like 95% of the women I work with have digestive issues.
Wow.
So
gosh,
that's very common.
That's just crazy too. It's now become such a norm. I know I've dealt with issues for many years, but it's like, what is it? The food? Is the food quality? Like, why are we having all of these issues?
Yeah, it's a lot of things. It's food quality, it's stress, you know, our environments, just a lot of stuff.
So I'm going to move to a farm and just farm my own food and quit technology and not have a job.
Exactly.
And just meditate all day. That's my plan.
Exactly. Wouldn't that be nice? And then the third thing I would say is probably thyroid issues.
Wow.
And again, because, you know, I've been there, I know it. You know, thyroid issues again are very overlooked when women have fertility struggles. A lot of women aren't tested for thyroid at all.
Is it something that you would have to specifically ask your doctor to test you for if you were curious?
Yeah. So if you don't have any symptoms for it, or, you know, symptoms where you're like because the problem is in conventional medicine was designed to treat disease, right? So if they look at you and you're not like half dying, then it's, unfortunately, this is what the approach to it, because it's made to treat disease and it's made to treat you when you're sick, which is great. We need it. We love it. It saves lives.
Sure.
But it's very important to understand that there is this whole population of people that are living with symptoms on a day-to-day basis that it's going under the radar.
Mm-hmm.
And this like subclinical hypothyroidism that women are, they have subclinical hypothyroidism, but on a conventional radar, you're not sick enough to be out of the range on blood work.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a doctor who asks for routine blood work that includes a full thyroid panel, that is something that I would definitely ask for. Again, you might have a little bit of resistance because one, you're not the doctor. And two, insurance policies don't like to cover you if you're not sick, right? So if you're like, okay, you'll be all right, type of thing, they won't bother. If you want to understand all about testing and all of that stuff, you can visit my page, which I know Jess is obviously going to link. I talk a lot about testing and how to test your thyroid properly and how to advocate for the right testing, because again, that's something that really goes over, overlooked. And there's a lot of misdiagnosis when it comes to thyroid problems. So those are the three things that I've seen most commonly affect women in their fertility.
Yeah. What would you say are three things that anyone listening, doesn't have to be a woman, three things that we can do immediately starting today that don't require things like testing or anything like that? Just three things to start to really like tune into our own body, to understand cues, to really start to get present with what our body is trying to tell us.
Sorry, cut that
No
off.
worries. She's got sick little sick ones at home.
Yeah, sorry.
Passing around the boogers.
So I would say that the first thing would be to take inventory of your symptoms. Like start just writing down how you feel.
Yeah.
Are you noticing a pattern with, do you get chronic migraines? Do you get cravings? Do you get energy slumps in the middle of the day? Do you have digestive issues? Is your cycle regular? What symptoms do you have in your cycle? Are you tracking your cycle? Do you even know what's going on with your cycle? Because a lot of women don't. I think understanding your body starts with first paying attention to it.
Yeah.
We aren't. A lot of people just live their day to day knowing that they're feeling these things, or they're just unaware. They're not like switched on to, oh yeah, I do have digestive issues every single day. So I think it's like really tuning into what's happening on a daily basis. So that's step number one. Number two, I would say just ditch all the processed foods. Start to learn how to read labels on foods. If you really have to buy packaged foods, if there are things on there that you cannot pronounce, you don't know, ditch it. Ideally, we want to have a whole food balanced diet, ample amounts of protein, especially for women, ample amounts of healthy fats for our hormones, good amounts of carbs, complex carbohydrates for our energy source, our digestive health, our thyroid health, all of that stuff. So you really want to just focus on whole foods. Lots of color, lots of diversity.
Like Fruit
and
Loops.
Just ditch.
Very colorful.
Exactly. Very colorful. You've completely missed the point here.
You said colorful. I was thinking Skittles.
Yeah, exactly. So lots of color, lots of diversity. And then I think the third point would be ditch the toxins. So like your scented Bath and Body Works candles, your Victoria's Secret body spray, perfumes, your aerosol deodorants, aluminum filled deodorants, like all of these things. Really start paying attention to the products that you're using. Are you still using a ton of plastic? BPA, which is in plastic, is number one offender for fertility. So it is causing mayhem for our hormones. especially in women, especially with our estrogen. So we are in this constant state of estrogen dominance where our estrogen and our progesterone is imbalanced. Our progesterone is depleted, and obviously progesterone is what is your fertility hormone, right? You need it to get pregnant and to keep a pregnancy. So plastic is a huge offender. Toxins and scented products are huge offenders. You know, the makeup that you're using, the body wash that you're using, the body lotion that sits on your skin all day, is it scented? You know, all of these things have what we call endocrine disrupting chemicals, which are massively linked. And this is something that I actually added into my program after I got this thyroid cancer diagnosis. I said, we have to talk about this because no one's talking about it.
Yeah.
And when I researched why I got cancer, I personally took it upon myself to take inventory of every single thing in my household that could have been contributing, possibly. And when I researched it, every single thing I was using said possible thyroid cancer, possible thyroid disease, risk thyroid cancer.
Wow.
And I was like, what? I was floored.
Oh.
And so for 2 or 3 years, I completely, like, I threw out half the house. I was like, we're not using any of this stuff. We're getting filtered water. We're not using nonstick pans, no more scented candles, none of that.
Yeah.
And it made a huge difference, to be honest, in my hormones and the way that I feel. So I think those would be the three first things that I would do straight off the bat.
Yeah. The like word that's coming to mind with those three things that you said for me is just like awareness and presence.
100%.
Because it's just like the more aware you become of what you're using, what's around you, what you're eating, how you feel. Because to your point before, when you were 12, 14, 16 years old, and the response from adults or doctors was like, well, that's just normal. You think it's just normal. So many of us are living in like 60, 70% capacity, 60, 70% energy, but because it's our everyday, we just think it's normal. And then when you actually make the changes, it's like someone switches a light bulb on, you're like, whoa, I didn't realize, like, I'm so much more lit up now. I thought that I already felt fine because I didn't present with quote unquote symptoms, right? Like I didn't have any symptoms, so I didn't think anything was wrong. The other thing that I want to point out, you just said like real quickly, you're like, for a couple of years, I started to change what was in the household. For anyone listening who's looking around going, oh my gosh, and I'm not calling these brands out, but I think we all know what they are, right? Where it's like, it's Windex and Lysol and all this stuff. And you're like, oh my God, my whole house is that. That is a huge undertaking financially and energetically to throw everything out and to rebuy everything. You don't need to do that. It's just starting with one thing at a time. I remember a couple of years ago, I threw out all my makeup and I switched it to all non-toxic, and it was hundreds of dollars in one shop. And I'm so grateful that I'm in a place and space that I could walk in and just do that. And I didn't need to do it slowly. But for the last 10 years, Mike and I have been slowly transitioning this product and that product. And it is also so frustrating that it is sold to us. All of this stuff is sold to us when it's so dangerous. It's so bad for us. And we're like, but it's in everything. It's like, it's just so frustrating. We can have you back on for an entire episode of that too, because I know even love my parents, but they're, what are they, 73 and 75, and very much still set in their ways. They've done a great job transitioning their food over the years and eating organic and being very mindful, but there are definitely still products in the house that they use where I'm like, why are you using this? And my mom's like, but they're selling it to me. Like, why? I've used it for 50 years. Why wouldn't I continue to buy it?
Of course.
So it is tough. It is tough.
No, it is. And I think it definitely takes years to completely, do this overhaul of like changing everything. But excuse me, but it's also, I think something to really remember is like, start with the things that either you have contact your food. So like your plastic Tupperware, things like that, plastic water bottles, and also stuff that sits on your skin. So whether that's makeup, body lotion, anything that literally stays on your skin, deodorant, and like sinks through it, seeps through it all day, that is the first thing you want to switch out. So whatever is like the largest surface area on your body, first thing you want to get rid of. And then slowly, you'll you'll do it slowly.
Yeah. And we love Grubhub and Uber Eats and stuff, but your hot food in delivery containers,
oh my God,
styrofoam and plastic is so bad.
It's so bad for you.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I could talk to you all day. I'm like, we're gonna have to have you back on because I feel like we've barely even cracked the surface of what I wanted to talk about today, but I do want to be mindful of your time. Where can people find you? How can they work with you? Tell us everything, pimp yourself out. And then if we can do some rapid fire questions, I would love that.
Sure. So you can find me, easiest place to find me is on Instagram, Sandra Sharpe with an E Wellness. I have a lot of information on there. My website's on there. You can check it all out. You can always DM me. My DMs are always open. And for anyone who is interested in learning all about how to prep your body for pregnancy, or you want to boost your fertility, you want to just get your body in a good place, start balancing your hormones, and really doing like a 360 whole body approach to fertility, then my program, the Rebalance Method, which is my signature program, is launching again in February. So our next round is in February. It is going to be our 10th round, which I am so excited for.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's lucky number 10. And I have so much exciting stuff planned for this round, things that I'm adding to this round. Think of everything for literally a 360 body approach. So everything from balancing your hormones and nutrition and understanding why you have any sort of issues with your cycle or your hormones or your fertility, but also like recipe guides, nutrition, speakers that come onto the program, a 12-week training program, training, specialists that are actually going to show you different modalities of how to prep your body for pregnancy and delivery. So it is truly a 360 one-stop shop program for all things fertility. So if that is something you are interested in, you can definitely get in touch with me on Instagram and I can send you all the information that you may need.
I could not recommend the program enough or you enough. There is not many people on the internet that I feel so strongly about how much I just adore you and love and trust everything that you do. And I've seen the insides of Rebalanced and it is an incredible program and you're an even more incredible teacher. So I'm really excited for the women that are going to be joining you. I cannot believe it's round 10.
I know.
Oh my goodness. And we'll put everything into the show notes. And it's like you said, Sandra Sharpe Wellness, and Sharpe has an E at the end of it. You down for some rapid fires?
Yes.
Okay. When you were just a little girl and before you had this whole journey that you have, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a doctor, actually.
Did you really?
I did. I wanted to be a pediatrician, doctor for kids.
Look at you now. Not that far off.
Not that far off.
I love it. If you were to give a TED Talk on nothing that you're known for, what would it be?
Nothing that I'm known for. I would probably talk about my culture and growing up between being an Arab and growing up in the West and in the US, and how that's kind of like how I had to merge things and learn things and teach things. And I would talk about just my journey of becoming me, I guess.
Yeah. Were you born in the US?
I wasn't. I was born in Greece, actually.
You were born in Greece, but you did high school in the US.
I did high school in the US. I also lived in the US in the 90s for 5 years. And then I graduated high school in the US. So I was there for like
And how long have you been in Dubai?
In Dubai now, I lived in the 90s in Dubai, and then I came back in 2010. So it's been 16 years in Dubai in total.
You met Rob in Dubai?
I did, yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, we are going to have you back on. So much to chat about. What is one piece of advice that you want Harper to hear and truly live into?
I want her to truly appreciate who she is, to truly appreciate the fact that she is a woman, the power that we have as women. I never want her to feel like because you're a woman, you're predestined for pain, for discomfort, for, being shoved down, being quote unquote inferior in any way. There is so much power in being a woman. And I think, a lot of us for a lot of us, it took us a long time to really step into our feminine energy. And that is what I love teaching women to do, because I've experienced it. And it's probably the most liberating thing that we can ever experience. And I definitely want her to learn how to do that, and also continuously be curious, like just constantly want to know why.
That's so cool.
Which she already is doing. So.
Yeah, I bet.
Why?
Why? Everything's why, because I said so.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you currently reading or listening to?
I am currently listening to, well, I've been listening to Erin Holt's podcast, who is one of my mentors, just because I recently finished a program with her and I was certified as a functional nutrition practitioner. And I just find her, especially in the space of what I do, I just find her so like, she's like major goals for where I want my business to go, how she's, you know, how she's done in her podcast, what she does, what she teaches, what she's learned, you know, she's just very inspirational. What I'm reading currently is, I'm currently actually going back through one of my favorite books for hormone health, which is about Aviva Romm, Dr. Aviva Romm, who is a pioneer in the functional medicine fertility space. And the book is Hormone Intelligence, which for anyone who wants like a really great in-depth holy grail book about hormones, this is your go-to.
Ooh, so good. Okay, last two. Our $50,000 question. If I were to cut you a check for $50,000 tomorrow, you had to use it in or on your business. You could break it up or you could use it in one lump sum. How would you invest it?
Ooh. Wow, that is a loaded question. I don't even know where to start. I think the biggest thing would be to invest it in the people. Well, one of the ways that I would invest part of that money would be growing a team.
Yeah.
And growing a really solid foundation of, you know, just amazing people who represent my brand, who are passionate about what I do. Because like you said, you taught us people buy from people. And if you surround yourself with inspirational people and people who are genuinely, you know, heart-centric and want to do heart-centered work, I think your biggest investment should be in the people that you hire.
I love it. Final question. We named the company Digital Business Evolution because we believe we're always evolving and growing, and our businesses are a reflection of that growth. What is your next personal or business evolution?
So I think it's kind of personal and business kind of go hand in hand, you know, because of what I've experienced with 2 pregnancies, being a mother, being an entrepreneur. I really want to dive deep into the world of fertility, the world of supporting women postpartum. You know, I dream and I would love to have a postpartum retreat clinic center,
cool.
You know, where we could just support women. Don't steal my idea.
I will not be taking it, but it is already done. It is done. It is done.
So yeah, I want to continue supporting women in that field, but also I really want to start teaching women in schools and girls in schools a lot more about their bodies, because I don't want Harper, my daughter, to grow up in a world where girls are still not understanding their bodies. Yeah. And I think it really starts in the classroom. It really starts with what we teach our young generation, the young generation that's coming out. So especially with all the like TikTok trends and all these crazy things that I'm just seeing the most ridiculous things. I definitely don't want her to grow up in a world where she is resorting to horrific fads that are going to harm her body. Yeah. So yeah, that's sort of where I'm headed.
I'm so excited. I can't wait to support you on the journey for years to come. I adore you. I love you so much. Thank you for being here and sharing so much wealth of knowledge with everybody. If you love this episode, please screenshot it, and then you can tag Sandra and I. Tag her at Sandra Sharpe Wellness. Tag me at I am Jessica DeRose. The reason why we love to see that is, of course, to see that you're loving the episodes. Yeah, that's nice. But more importantly, so Sandra and I both can reach out to you individually and say thank you in the DMs and connect with you personally. If you're interested in anything that Sandra has going on, check the link in our show notes because she's got her Rebalance Method coming up again in February of 2024. And until next time, friends, cheers to your evolution. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved this episode, I invite you to be a part of our ripple effect and share it with a friend. And please, if you feel called, take 30 seconds to leave a 5-star review, and I'll be forever grateful. Until next time, cheers to your evolution.